Really, that's all we could afford? Didn't we have a read ad last video? So guys, I recently checked out the analytics for the channel and found out that 100% of you guys are massive Smurfs fans. Which reminded me of the time at the beginning of the 2010s when they decided to make not only one, but 2 live-action CGI Smurf movies for the public's consumption. Are they gonna be as bad as the other cartoon characters brought to live-action movies we looked at? Will it be as bad as Alvin and the Chipmunks, or as amazing and perfect as Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed? Let's find out. I've never really had any attachments to the Smurfs as a franchise. Starting as a Belgian comic series created by a man named Peo, the small blue characters who lived in mushroom-shaped houses became a pretty successful property, eventually branching out into TV shows, video games, toys, and as we're gonna unfortunately see, films. Apparently the idea of a Smurfs movie has been in production for a long time, with Peo's heirs accepting an offer from Jordan Kerner in 2002 after reading his film adaptation of Charlotte's Web. Originally, it would have been an all-CGI film, teaming up with Paramount and Nickelodeon movies. Seems like he had high hopes, wanting it to be a trilogy that gets into the backstory of the characters and the villain of the series, Gargamel the Wizard. This all fell apart when Columbia Pictures and Sony Animation scooped up the film rights in 2008. With the then chairperson of Sony Pictures, Amy Pascal, loving the idea of turning it into a live-action CGI hybrid, to join the rankings of the other classics like Garfield and Alvin and the Chipmunks. But this is the same woman who greenlit the Ghostbusters 2016 remake, so she wasn't exactly known for making the best business decisions. Now that I think about it, the Alvin movie came out in 2007 and was a big hit, which probably contributed to this change in direction. But with the writers of Shrek 2 on board, along with the writers of the hit Kevin James comedy Zookeeper, how could this possibly feel? Especially with the director of both Scooby-Doo movies on- wait, what? I think I'm actually kind of excited now. The film did really well, making over $500 million at the box office. And while the reviews aren't great, they're also not horrible. I mean, again, Scooby-Doo 2 has a 5.1 on IMDb, and I think that movie is wonderful. So who knows, maybe we'll end up being pleasantly surprised. So without further ado, let's get into the Smurfs. For their first feature-length film, we see Neil Patrick Harris and his wife. He's recently been temporarily promoted to the VP of Marketing for the beauty product place that he works at, and is struggling to come up with a new creative concept while also getting used to the idea of becoming a father with his wife being pregnant. Oh yeah, there are also some Smurfs here or there too, I think. The Smurfs have been transported from their own magical Smurf village to the city of New York, and after Papa Smurf has a vision of his family getting captured by Gargamel, he's worried that one of his sons, Clumsy, is causing this prediction to come true. But the evil Gargamel and his cat have also traveled to New York for twice the shenanigans. They really didn't need to have such a convoluted story for this. They already established in the Smurfs' homeworld that Gargamel doesn't know where they live because their village has an invisible force field around it. So why couldn't this just be in the normal world from the get-go? Just have Gargamel be some weird wizard guy who lives by himself away from the regular cities and such. But no, we gotta start establishing the lore behind this blue moon and how it only comes out once in a blue moon. I bet you were patting yourself on the back for that one, writers. So with this being their only way of getting home, the Smurfs must team up with Neil Patrick Harris to open back up the portal while helping him with his own issues in the process. There are 2 ways you can do one of these live-action hybrid movies, and I think one is just objectively the better option. And yeah, it's the one Smurfs didn't take. A common criticism I see of these movies is that they're all the same cookie-cutter story with the animated character being transported to our world through a portal of some kind. And while this makes it super easy to fill your movie with dumb, predictable fish-out-of-water jokes, I think the much better option is to simply have your character already existing in that world. It's weird, the Sonic movie sort of struck the perfect balance between these. By having him get transported to Earth as a kid, and following it up with a time skip to when he's older, they're able to avoid a lot of these cliches where Sonic goes, "Wait a second, what's an iPhone?" And when they do have it, it's in favor of the story of him feeling alone and that he hasn't really gotten to experience normal life on Earth. Obligatory Sonic tangent over. Second channel, by the way. Doing this doesn't automatically equate to a good movie. Like, Alvin and the Chipmunks had them just existing as regular creatures in society, and it looks like that new Tom and Jerry movie is doing the same thing with all its animal characters, and I'm sorry, that movie just looks awful. But I'd like to point towards a film that I think greatly benefits from embracing the cartoon characters living in the world normally. You know it, you know I love it, Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed. Something I don't think people give this film enough credit for is the sets. It looks like it was ripped right out of the cartoon. Especially that one manor they go to for a bit. Great. But this really enhances the experience by making it feel like more of an episode of the show brought to life. Does this look like a Smurf episode brought to life? Don't think I need to answer that. The opening sort of is, but after that it's just boring, regular old New York City, and that's not interesting to look at all. A big appeal of these live-action movies shouldn't just be seeing the character in a real-life setting, but also their world, and it just causes Smurfs to look so bland and uninteresting. But we can't do that because we just need that shot of New York. You know the one, where all the characters look up as the camera pans to reveal all the wonderful product placement Sony is beloved for. Because when I think Smurfs, I think of like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and the Blue Man Group. Okay, yeah, actually, that one makes sense. The worst of it though was a really drawn out scene of the characters singing to Neil Patrick Harris playing Guitar Hero for no reason at all other than to promote the game, I guess. This is completely shameless. Speaking of the characters, Neil's character... That just doesn't sound right. Neil Patrick Harris is just one of those people where you have to say his full name when talking about him, so bear with me here. Neil Patrick Harris's character is so uninteresting. His wife and him are simply there to give the Smurfs someone to explain the modern world and how it works. I wouldn't mind so much if half the goddamn movie wasn't dedicated to their insignificant problems. But whatever, they're not the main focus. Do you see him on the poster? Yeah, I don't think so. We got the Smurfs, and they're all cool and edgy. We got Papa Smurf crossing his arms while wearing sunglasses. He does that all the time. So the whole deal with the Smurfs is that Papa Smurf has 99 sons and 1 daughter, Smurfette. Each of them has a distinct personality trait, except for, Smurfette, it's a girl. That they're named after, like brainy, clumsy, greedy, grouchy, etc., etc., etc. Because it would just be a mess otherwise, only a few of them get transported to New York. But this means that no matter what the situation is, you know how each character is going to act in every single scene. How they'll react to something, how they'll interact with another character, it's always the same. The only one with any kind of arc is Clumsy. Sorta. Who feels like a burden with his clumsiness causing him to mess up a lot of stuff. You know, because he is a burden. There's no real development here, we just get one scene of the wife saying, "You know, I used to be clumsy too, but now I can be whatever I want." That's not even a girl voice. And it doesn't affect anything because status quo means he needs to stay as clumsy. Glad we wasted time on that. Perfect. The real star of the show here is Gargamel, played by, shockingly, Hank Azaria, who you'll probably know as the voice of characters like Chief Wiggum, Mo Sizlak, and Professor Frink on The Simpsons, among many, many more. He even breaks out into their voices at certain times.
My magic will finally become... not infallible. Invincible, yes, thank you.
But he steals the entire movie. He, for some reason, is really giving it his all. It feels like a cartoon character brought into the real world. This is what I was talking about before. I didn't ever laugh, per se, at his jokes, but I could really tell that he was the only person in this actively trying to make it cartoony, which ends up making the villain the most likable character in the whole film.
Ye gods, Esriel. You're a boy?
Look, okay, again, I never said I laughed at any of this. There's this really bizarre part where they want to force in some conflict between Neil Patrick Harris and his wife, where he shouts something out like,
I should have said no. I never wanted a house full of little people running around.
Then she looks at him like, wow, I can't believe you would cleverly and subtly make a metaphor for the child we're about to have, but those two things, I didn't put the end quotes in, so I kept doing it. But no, those two things are not similar in the slightest. Maybe it's just me, but I don't see the similarities at all in having a human infant and 6 Smurfs running around your apartment and almost getting you fired from your job. Again, though, that's just me. Who knows, maybe I'm the weird one. Then there's this really weird part where they're trying to figure out a way home and come across this book that shows a bunch of Peyo's old comics in them, implying that he was some sort of researcher of the Smurfs. Don't know how he managed to travel between dimensions, but hey, that's cool. But if people know about the Smurfs and their books and stuff exist here, then shouldn't it be a way bigger deal they're now alive? You're telling me Neil Patrick Harris has no clue who the Smurfs are? I guess they just really needed that trailer clip where they meet each other and start screaming. Now, I think I've been avoiding the elephant in the room here, and it's time to talk about it finally. And that, of course, is how the Smurfs have been translated into CGI. Ugh. When it comes to turning a cartoon character into a CG creature meant to naturally blend into the real world, I get the thought process in wanting to make them a little more realistic. I mean, again, the new Tom and Jerry trailer came out, and I think this is the unpopular opinion here, you know me, but I think the characters are too cartoony. Yeah, that's possible. Sure, it looks really nice and it's animated really well, but I don't know how I'm going to be immersed in this for 2 hours when all I can think about looking at this is how poorly they've been integrated. That is not to give a point to the Smurfs though for not doing that. They definitely went too far in the other direction here. Their massive noses have been made just small enough to look creepy. They've got really weird defined lips, and they have no chin to speak of. Oh boy, I sure do love being able to visibly make out their chest pectoral muscles. And of course their worst feature, the eyes. The pupils are way too big. Seeing these massive realistic pupils and irises up close is just disturbing. In terms of the animation, it's done decently, even if there's barely any expressive facial features to speak of or exaggerated movements. But it looks pretty alright. It's just the designs that really brings it down. Where were the petitions to change these designs, Smurf fans, huh? That didn't stop the kids from seeing it. Like I mentioned before, this movie made over $500 million at the box office, which for a bloody Smurfs movie is amazing. I'm not exactly sure what about this film appealed to so many people, but hey, it sure did.
Please back away from the TV.
This sort of brought the Smurfs back into the limelight. Kinda, maybe. They were around again with video games and toys and junk, but I've never really met any people who are super mega fans of the Smurfs because of these movies, and they've definitely been forgotten about. Who knows, maybe the second one just didn't do very well. There's only one way to find out. So because they had to try and find a way to somehow make a sequel to this without it being weird or convoluted, they made it weird and convoluted anyway. Before we get into the plot, I'd like to note that in the official trailer for this movie, they show footage from the first one and act like it's coming from the second. I just thought that was neat to mention. Still being stuck on Earth after the events of the first movie, Gargamel is now using his magic to acquire the admiration of the entire world, becoming a famous magician, who's doing a show in France. But behind the scenes, he's managed to create his own Smurf-like creatures called Naughties, who are just grey emo Smurfs. Smurfette is currently feeling unloved, because the other Smurfs pretended to forget her birthday. And so the Naughties kidnap her and take her back to Gargamel, who wants her to give him the Krabby Patty secret formula, so he can make his Naughties into real Smurfs so he can extract their essence. This is because Smurfette was also created by Gargamel, in order to capture the rest of them. But through the power of family, they managed to turn her into a real boy Smurf. So now the Smurfs must travel back to New York City and once again team up with Neil Patrick Harris to get Smurfette back. Please, someone make a counter for every time I say Smurf in this video, Jesus Christ. In this adventure, they decided to remove two of the Smurfs from the last movie, Brainy and the Scottish one, I can't remember his name. And instead, they've been replaced with Vanity, I want to say? Let me look it up. Yeah, alright, perfect, I was correct. They barely do anything until the end of the film, though. If the focus isn't on Smurfette and her story, it's focused on, once again, Neil Patrick Harris, whose stepdad has come to town for his son's birthday party, who is an awful actor. I know I can't be too mad at children not acting well, but at least don't give him any lines, let him sit in the corner and watch the silly Smurfs. To fit in with the Smurfette story, Neil is also having dad troubles. He doesn't like his stepdad despite being a fully grown man. There's even a point where he looks at him and just says, "Grow up."
My last word of advice to you is this. Will you grow up?
But he eventually learns to accept his father through the help of the Smurfs. I can't believe this is a real movie. And also because why not the stepdad turns into a random epic duck for half the movie. It's really funny, I assure you. You want to know what else is funny? Using the word Smurf all the time in placement of other words. I didn't mention this with the first one, but it might be worse in the sequel. I know they do it in the original series, but it's just too much. I don't know, it's really annoying and not funny at all. If I hear a character go, "What the Smurf?" I'm not giggling with joy. My stomach isn't aching from the pure wit and comedy. It just makes me hate every single character in the movie.
I want to be able to whack him right in the Smurf berry.
Hey, who smurfed a bite out of Smurfette's birthday cake?
Outsmurfed by a simpleton.
Oh yeah, I've got it all over the Smurf web. It's got 101 likes on Smurfbook.
Was able to smurf it into Smurfportation crystals. Smurf exactly. You'll smurf with me.
I know the Smurflick maneuver.
Sometimes you gotta smurf with the changes.
I watched both these movies in the cinema as a kid, and even then I honestly wanted Gargamel to win just so they'd shut up. Who, by the way, is still the best part of the movie. I don't know why he put so much effort into his performance here, but hey, it's appreciated.
Oh, Monsieur Gargamel!
Thank you for keeping our seats warm. Goodbye.
He did a much better job than all the celebrities that got to voice the Smurfs, like Katy Perry, who says every single line like she's being tied up by the producer and is being forced to read off the script because she constantly sounds like she's been crying for some reason.
I'm just hugging you. Haven't you ever been hugged?
The animation is also barely any different from the first. Usually with a sequel movie, it's fun to see how the animation has improved, And with the last one, I can definitely see some stuff that needs improved, like, oh, I don't know, these designs. Anyway, I think I should go over the significance of the emo Smurfs. No, I'm not calling them naughties any- Oh, goddamn. I can read the setup to you and you'll be able to tell me exactly where the story goes. It's that predictable. The emo Smurfs are going to try and befriend Smurfette to get her into a false sense of security, so she'll be more willing to share the Krabby Patty secret formula. So they go out and have a good time with her and realize, hey, maybe she isn't so bad after all. Yeah, you can see where this is going. Of course, this is all leading to the eventual ending where they decide to betray Gargamel and help the Smurfs escape, coming home with them and turning blue in the process. Didn't see that coming, just in time for the dance party ending. This one just feels like the exact same thing as the first one, and I think that's what I hate the most about it. It doesn't feel like there's been any kind of progression or evolution. Which I know may be asking a bit much of a Smurfs movie, but still. It's just so boring, it's going through the motions with no real effort put into anything. There aren't even many attempts to be funny, because that would require work. They just expect you to find the word Smurf funny. This movie is the absolute bare minimum and nothing more. This one didn't do nearly as well as the first one, only earning about $350 million, which is still quite a bit for one of these. Like, it's not a bad amount for Smurfs 2. Maybe it didn't do so well again because it's just kind of more of the same. Not even the posters were a lot different, they used the same renders as the originals. Why would I ever want to watch this if it's promising to be the exact same thing as last time? They had initially planned to make a third one of these, but it ended up being scrapped in favor of 2017's Smurfs The Lost Village. Which was finally what everyone wanted, right? An all-CG film about the Smurfs, taking place in the Smurfs universe with no Neil Patrick Harris to speak of. Well, was it as amazing as everyone had hoped? I mean, it's fine. I'd take it over another live-action one at least, but it's just sort of bland and safe. It wasn't outrageously bad, but at the same time, it's nothing truly amazing. Really good animation though, these characters look great in their original style. There was also a Halloween and Christmas special featuring the creepy live-action Smurfs, but do you really want me to talk about those? What more can be said? Only thing worth noting is that the Christmas one switches between CG and the regular 2D animation, which is something I suppose, but again there's nothing to really say. The Lost Village didn't do very well at the box office, so for now I think it's safe to say we're done with Smurf movies for the time being. And thank God, because I cannot think of a franchise more creatively bankrupt than this film series. And Sony Pictures Animation moved on to bigger and better things such as... Yikes. That's right, I just made an Emoji Movie joke in 2020, what are you gonna do about it?